here. Time has no meaning.
Way to start alive. Time has no meaning.
Happy Monday.
Oh, that's such a great way to phrase it, though. Good Monday morning, Jen. How are you?
Oh, good morning, Jen. I'm good. I know we're in for the snow and freezing rain is stopping, but the Arctic blast is on the way here in New York. So anyway, we're still in the thick of it, but spring is coming. The days are getting longer. The birds are starting to build their nests. I'm getting excited about that. So how are you?
Yeah, I didn't realize there was an Arctic blast coming. I try to pay attention to the weather like from one day to another, because I feel like if I know too much, I just get upset when I know it's going to be 5 days of rain. So I'm like, I'd rather just have a little bit of info at a time. But I did say to my plow person who told me that I already owe him hundreds of dollars for plowing this year. And I was like, oh, is it safe to assume we're done? He's like, I wouldn't say that. I'm like, all right. So,
all right. Okay. Well, at least he's truthful, you know.
Yeah, I almost took the plow markers out of my driveway, but I'm like, no, that seems stupid, because then they'll destroy my yard because I took them out. So
yeah, best to leave plow markers. Boy, that's something that West Coast people don't understand. What is that strange thing? Anyway,
yes.
So Jen, what I know we always share our news or program announcements. So what do you want to announce today before we invite our guest?
Yeah, absolutely. So my Getting Started for Authors program is starting on Monday of next week. And so we have a limited number of people that we can accept into it, and there are spots available. So I'm super excited. And it's a 6-month program that helps you really just get your manuscript written. That is the crux of what the goal is to take it out of your head, strategically move it forward to the finish line. So we've already got some awesome people in it, and I am super, super excited by it. So it starts on March 8th next week. And I know, Jen, your program, if I'm not mistaken, starts on March 9th, right?
The next day. Yes, March 9th, we're running the next cohort of our DEI Foundations program. So that is our 6-week blended learning. So I'd say it's asynchronous and synchronous. So it's an approach that includes all learning styles, I hope, or as many as we can possibly include, and also allows you to self-pace to a certain extent, because I know we're all like fitting this in addition to everything else we do. Mm-hmm. So yes, it starts on March 9th, 6 weeks. Don't worry, there will be another one or two maybe this year, I hope. But it is for the learner in D&I, meaning somebody who's just getting started, getting grounded in your story, your diversity dimensions, your goals and your vision and all that really good stuff on the personal level, like before we take on the role of leading this work in organizational context. So go to jenniferbrownconsulting.com, and then under courses, you'll see DEI Foundations. And yes, and if you use the code podcast, because I have a podcast called The Will to Change, you'll get 20% off. So that's exciting. Yeah.
I like it a lot. Yeah. So I am always excited about who we talk to, but today we're going to talk to Jai Vargas, who I believe was connected to me through Brian McCormack. And I'm going to have Jai confirm that. That is correct, right? It was Brian, right?
That is correct. He's incredible, and I'm so glad he connected all of us.
Yeah. And Brian was one of our guests. So Jen, we're on like our year anniversary of doing this, by the way.
Oh my gosh.
Insane.
Wow. Insane.
But yeah, so Jai, welcome. We're happy to have you here. I would love if you just kind of gave a broad brush stroke of what you do in this world, because I know we were already having some really amazing conversations prior to going live that I would love for us to carry through so others can learn from us.
Thank you so much for having me. So among many things, I'll tell you a few. I am a diversity and inclusion consultant, where I help employee resource groups figure out their strategy, their meaning, how to make real impact and change within their organizations. I am an immigrant, a Latina. I created an organization for Latinas and women of color about 9 years ago called the Latinista. And the reason why I created that group was because I didn't see myself reflected when I attended so many incredibly impactful events and conferences and conversations across the US. So I would always come back to New York in my community and I would say, why aren't you guys at those conferences? And they would always say, I had no idea they were going on, or I know all about them, but my boss would never let me take the time off to go and attend them. And so I really created that space so that I can help women really understand how to value themselves and how to articulate that to their managers and their bosses so that they can attend these conferences that were in the end going to be so impactful for their career. I'm also known as the LinkedIn Ninja. I've been on LinkedIn for 14 years. I help individuals as well as organizations figure out their thought leadership strategy. So how do people perceive you when they see you on LinkedIn? Do they just look at you and they're like, oh, that's just another accountant or graphic designer among many? Or do they say, wow, she's so incredibly passionate about many different things, and I feel like I know her because she is a graphic designer, she is a creative, she does Zumba on the weekend for her community, and she also helps her brother sell cupcakes. That's why people want to connect with you, because they can see themselves in your community and learning from you and vice versa. And so I do a number of different things. I'm also a public speaker. I go to women's conferences. I love to inspire other women to really authenticate their voice and share their personal experiences so that they can help other people going through what they've been through. So I just love the fact that I'm here with you, incredible women that have created this platform in this space so we can share our stories.
So good. You're amazing. And what I love is how much you embrace your identity. You really lead with it, and you're so proud of it. And you're so enthusiastic about, talking about it and bringing all the richness of identities to the fore, willingly and generously, and encouraging other women to do this as well, and all diverse talent, because really to step up and be seen and heard is such a critical ingredient for change. But I think there's some things that hold us back, whether it's imposter syndrome, when we don't see someone or people that look like us and share our story, we tend to kind of think like that can't be me someday, or I can't be first, or who am I to be first, right? Or there's a flip side of, well, why should I be the token, right? Why should I be doing the work to hold this conversation up, and make sure that it happens every single time, right? And that can lead to frustration and fatigue and all those other things. So I wonder, does that sort of accurately describe the reasons why, like how we need to navigate our own mindset as we step into our thought leadership and the platforms that we deserve? What are some of those things that get in the way for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I speak to so many career women and professionals that don't think that they're up, for the opportunity, whether it's transitioning to a new role or career, or to just speak their voice when they are indeed, an MBA or a scientist even, or a PhD. They sort of feel like, I don't want to brag, or I'm not there yet to be able to speak on those topics. And it's so challenging to see women or Latinas or women of color or others say, I don't think I'm ready, or it's probably not my space to be able to speak on that topic. When at the end of the day, as you both know it, whenever we speak, it's always very specific to what we've experienced. So you're not making anything up. You're simply talking about what you've gone through, how it's affected your career trajectory, why you have the community that you do around you, and then teaching others how to do the same for themselves. We're not asking you to speak on someone else's behalf or on the behalf of the entire industry. It's just how you've lived some of those experiences, so that when you speak upon it, other women or others can say, wow, that was really powerful. I think I can do that too. I've been through something similar.
That's it.
And do you experience that when we're not perfect in those interactions, in those settings that you just described, that there's something compelling about our lack of perfection to the others who are aspiring to kind of be in similar situations?
Oh, absolutely. And I always tell people, and I don't know who said this, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be. Just put it out there. Just do it already. Just go. No, nobody is nitpicking about how this came about or your credentials and your experience. Remember, when you speak on a certain topic, the most important thing when you sort of differentiate yourself from everyone else, it's a personal story that you're talking about. So no one can nitpick about how you're being reflected. So many people are waiting for the perfect opportunity or the right logo or the right conversation or the perfect role to apply to or the perfect job. At the end of the day, it's just taking care of that opportunity and saying, I think I'm really great for this. And there is space for me to learn to fill those shoes, and it's the organization's responsibility to be able to train me to help me grow into the rest of that opportunity.
Yeah. Jenn, you might know the data point on this more than I, but I know that the premise is that a man only needs to have like 10% of the qualifications for whatever the thing is, versus a woman believes that she needs to have 90% of those same qualifications to do the same thing. And I was just having a conversation, and I don't know if those numbers are accurate, but I was just having a conversation with a couple authors of mine, one of which has a PhD. And she was struggling with whether or not she puts the PhD on the cover of her book. And I was like, girl, of course you put that on the cover of your book. It was like so obvious to me, but it wasn't to her. And I think, and when I look at, we work with a lot of authors who do have PhDs. And when I look at the men, they have absolutely no problem either saying doctor in front of their names or adding the PhD. And then women have this like struggle around it. And I feel like it's, one very small example of what you're kind of talking about.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Jill Biden, right? Remember that whole thing? How great. So, I mean, it's real. Our fear is real. I just want to legitimize that because look at what happened with her trying to refer to herself as doctor. So I think, but we've got to push through it. There's no other way to think about it besides just to claim it, fake it till you make it. If it makes you feel uncomfortable because like you are scared that you can't inhabit something like big and bold that you're saying you are, I think that's a really interesting sign for entrepreneurs, especially, but authors or anyone who's using your voice to say, what is this about? Like, let me really look at it and let me not let it drive my choices because, I feel like as a woman in business, I learned a lot from watching how men interact with each other and how they do business and thinking about, well, what is the authentic version of that for me? Because I have to play somebody else's game, at least for a while, until we can reinvent the game to reflect ourselves, which is going to be a while, right? And so it's this interesting blend of challenging the system, trying to rebuild the plane as we're flying it so that it works for more of us. But at the same time, watching and observing how other people handle their brand. And then knowing that if you are underrepresented, you are probably going to play too small. Like that is just something you have to like assume is true. And I still do it myself. Like I still don't inhabit the way that others see me. Mm-hmm. And I think that's fascinating because it's so deeply socialized in us that we are not fully embracing of even the way others perceive the size of us. We don't. And I don't know if both of you can relate to that, but I find myself sometimes doing, it's like, I have to kind of readjust. I have to just say, no, like believe what others see in you, like believe it the first time, run with it, like own it, inhabit it, like embody it. And someday it becomes more comfortable, but the only way it becomes more comfortable is if we live in it and we put it on every single day.
Absolutely. And, I think we don't do enough work when it comes to acknowledging our accomplishments. I do an activity when I do workshops on professional branding where I have them sit down and say, what languages do you know? What degrees do you have? What about certifications? What about technology and platforms that you've mastered? You realize that not everyone knows how to do these things. Mm-hmm. What communities did you grow up in? What languages did you speak growing up? What can you speak to that most people can't? What are some of those unique identifiers? And sometimes people just forget, or they assume, oh, well, I'm in accounting. You knew that I had my CPA or my CFP or whatever. And you're like, no, I didn't. Why isn't that in your profile or on your resume? And it's like, well, I don't want to brag. I don't want to put that I have an MBA and a CPA and a whatever, that I went to law school, but I'm not practicing. I'm like,
Wow.
what issue here? You worked so hard to get these degrees and certifications. Why don't you want to tell people that you've worked so hard to be where you're at right now? What's the situation there?
That humility is it by turns beautiful and harmful. Literally, depending on which way you look at it, right? So how can we be the bigger brand and remain humble? And sort of disentangle this maybe from the norms that our culture teaches us to keep your head down and accomplish 150%, because the world is going to expect you to be extra in order to even have that seat at the table. Like, we've gotten that message, and then we make the tragedy of it is making choices based on that. I think we've got to become more aware of our socialization and our cultural norms, and unfortunately, it's more work to break out of those, to, push ourselves into things that are completely unfamiliar, but somehow know deep down, this is the right thing to do. Like, I have to do this because I've got to make way. I always tell people too, like, maybe if you think about your legacy, it makes it easier to be bold. And so it doesn't feel so selfish, but it feels that it's not bragging, but what it is it's giving people an example so that someday they will see more of that example and feel more comfortable with it. And if you can think of it, you can still be humble in terms of thinking about that legacy. Doesn't seem so ego driven. Maybe it helps, to be not like me, shine the spotlight on me and give everything to me. Actually, we are laying the groundwork for the next generation. And that was the you that didn't have the support that you should have had, didn't have the limelight that you deserved. But, somehow if we can make it safer, I guess, to make it less sort of ego driven and more legacy driven, then maybe more people would be okay with doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And we've already seen the challenges and the damage that it's done to our careers when we put our heads down and hope that somebody recognizes our hard work. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. We've already seen the women's pay inequity challenges that we've faced. So you know what? It's not working. So what you have to do is tell people how you're growing as a leader. Yes, I have my CFP and my CPA, and I've got a master's and a PhD, and I went to law school. You have to remind people of everything that you've accomplished, because when it comes time for them to give you a promotion or a salary increase, they're not going to know any of those things. They're just going to assume that maybe you did half of the work. They probably don't even remember because they're managing 15 other people. And if you don't constantly tell them what you're learning and growing as a leader, they're not going to do it for you. So you have to go above and beyond and say, this is the industry worth and the value that I think I deserve. And this is why. And this is what I've learned. Yes, there's room for me to grow. What do you think I should work on? Okay, thank you. And over the next 6 months, I'm going to work on that. But I need you to invest in me. I want to go to this conference. I need you to pay for this certification. I need to take this course. And the biggest challenge in that entire conversation is that a lot of the women that I work with in my community, they don't even have the confidence or the vocabulary to have that conversation with their manager to say, okay, fine, I've got to be a more confident public speaker in meetings, but I need you to help me. I need you to meet me halfway. I need you to pay for that confident public speaking course or that workshop or that. They don't even have the confidence or the words to have that conversation during their annual reviews. And so it's just the whole system is challenging, unfortunately.
And I think the sad part is that in those scenarios, like something as simple as, can you pay for this course, is such an easy yes from an employer standpoint. It's like, of course I will pay for you to do that thing that's going to help me make my business better. Of course I'm going to say yes to that. And so it seems so unfortunate that so few people even kind of think to ask that. I wonder, like, what is the trait of the person who does ask that? Like, if I go back in time when I was working for a very shitty employer who was homophobic, and I had a whole assortment of issues with them, but I asked them to pay for me to get certified in all of the Adobe products and a whole bunch of different web related things. Like, they paid for so many different classes for me to take. And I don't know what it was at the time where I was like, screw it, I'm just going to ask for what I want. But like, how do we, like, because that was just kind of who I am. But like, what about the people who that's not their default setting? Like, what is that, maybe that first little step that they might be able to take to get them to have the confidence to be able to say, hey, I want to help your business be better too, but I need to be better in the process. Like, what is that?
It's such a shame, right? And it's number one, I think it's also assuming that your manager won't do this for you, and assuming that there aren't other budgets and departments that'll pay for that certification or that conference for you to attend. When I was in corporate America, I was a member of many organizations, and my company was paying for about 10 different professional memberships because I asked, right? They couldn't give me a salary increase. And I was like, all right, so I need memberships to all these organizations, and I need you to fly me out to these conferences. And they were like, yeah, okay. Down to it, I was like, well, this is in writing. And so here I go. But so many women and so many people in general don't have the confidence, and they assume that their organization doesn't have the budget or the want to pay for it. I think what's so important, before you get to the time where you're like, forget it, I'm leaving this organization, for you to put in that work, to be very honest with yourself as to the opportunities that you still have to grow as a leader. You're not a great, confident public speaker. You don't speak up in meetings. You haven't mastered these platforms. You haven't learned those other areas to be a great professional. And so when you ask for that feedback, you have to put in the work 6 months to a year right before you pull the plug. And you have to ask for that support as well as that monetary support, so that once you keep asking and asking and asking and asking, and if they keep declining you, that's when you can say, well, I did the work. I asked for the money. You wouldn't send me. Here I go. Now there's no negotiations. I'm out. I'm leaving. Way before that, you've got to do so much work.
Yeah. I wonder if it's our fear of just being told no. I know many, many, many people kind of carry that fear of, if I'm not going to get a yes, I'm not going to ask at all.
Yeah.
So like even just something as simple as that is part of the root problem.
I think that's true. This has been so great. I mean, your advice is so good, Jai, to get in there, to have the conversations, to push, to ask, to commit to your career and your career development, and get creative too. I heard in you saying, like, if you can't get this, can you get that? Really knowing your value and pushing for your own development is not just unique to people that identify like we do, but really everybody. I mean, it's sort of a sink or swim workplace. And the squeaky wheel, I think, does get rewarded. And if you're uncomfortable being that advocate for yourself, to look inside and think about, so how much of this is what I've been told by my culture or my upbringing, or, the lack of role models, whatever, and sort of do the right thing with that information. Like, don't let it drive, don't let the tail wag the dog, but step into that leadership position to say, no, like, I want this, I need this, and I'm going to make the asks, however uncomfortable those conversations are. And then I'm going to make hard choices when I don't feel supported. And some of us, have the wherewithal to say, well, I'm out then. And some of us don't. But, to respect ourselves, we need to try, we need to push, we need to see what we can get from these big institutions that do have the funding. You're right. And do know that they're not developing people to the extent that we used to be developed. Like, those budgets and that dedication has really diminished over the years, and probably will continue to. So, think about what it means to advocate for yourself and your own growth, and claim, like you said, like, talk about what you've accomplished, and don't be shy about that, because everybody else is doing it. So, step on into the game, get in the arena. We have to be in there to get seen and heard, and then to be invested in. We have got to make some noise and kick up some dust. So
Absolutely. And you know what? If you don't know how to have those conversations or where to even begin, or if it completely flusters you, because I used to be there, 15 years in corporate America, you get beaten.
You do.
Your soul gets sucked out of you. Oh my gosh, right? And then you start to develop this thick skin, and then you turn into a pit bull, and then you're like, oh my God,
That's not me.
indestructible. Then nobody can tell you anything. But if you don't know how to even begin these conversations, find a career coach or an executive coach or a mentor that has been there, that can help give you that confidence, or even just the vocabulary to help nudge you, right? And just close your eyes and just do it. And then all of a sudden you're going to be like, oh my God, I got a raise. It's crazy. I can't believe I did this. I can't believe how easy it was. What if I had done this 10 years ago?
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh my God, this is great.
Now I'm figuring it out. This has been great. I hope people feel like this was a shot in the arm conversation. I know it was for me. It's like such an important reminder that never gets old, no matter where we are in our career. These things like pop up, and we got to manage them in the right way and not let them slow us down. So thanks so much. This was great, Jai. Thanks. Congrats on your successes.
Yeah, likewise. Can you just share quickly how people can get in touch with you? I have your website scrolling along the bottom.
That's right. JaiVargas.com. And of course, you can find me on my social media platform of choice that I always say is professional media. That's my LinkedIn profile, Jai Vargas. And I'm so happy that you two created this space for conversations like this, because sometimes, especially now, we're not surrounded by other people who've experienced it and have gone through it. And so thank you guys for all of the hard work. I know that this isn't easy when it comes to technology and platforms and promoting yourself. So I appreciate you going above and beyond and creating this community.
Oh, you're very
Thank
welcome.
you. Yes, glad to do it. Glad to do it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you both. Jen, you and I will be back next week as we
Yes,
always
we will.
are.
Yes,
Jai,
we will.
hopefully we'll be collaborating on something soon. It's just super exciting to have had this conversation today, and stay warm, dry, whatever the climate is throwing at you. Just try to navigate it.
Stay safe, both of you.
Bye.
Thank you for your work.
Likewise.
Right. Talk